Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. If you tuned in last week, you will know that we are doing part 2 on shame. Shame. Shame has everything to do with relationships, and it is a basic component within people and within relationships. And so Rick Patterson's book, Shame Unmasked, is so brilliant and so apropos. Shame Unmasked, disarming the hidden driver behind our destructive decisions. So the more you own your own shame base or core of shame, has different titles, the more you can unleash its good intention. Believe it or not, it's very strange. But the less control shame can have over you, the more you look at it and look at it benignly. Welcome back, Rick Patterson.
Well, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So, Rick, in the last show when you talked about befriending shame and see what it wants from me, and to understand it, so to not only dilute its negative power, but to bring positive power to it.
Yeah, you also mentioned last week sort of integrating different parts language. And one of the things that, you can think is that I found that I had these sort of weaker parts that I didn't want exposed. I want people to know about. I didn't want to even think about my own self. And I had hidden those parts of me away. But, if we have the ability to understand that those parts are a significant source of who we are as people, then we can embrace those weaker parts of ourselves. And the more we have that sort of self-empathy, the more we can embrace the weaker, the darker parts of ourselves, the dumber parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves we find shameful. The more we take control and power over our own lives. And I think you brought that up very well last week, that embracing all the different parts of ourself is critical in this process.
Yeah, I laughed when you said dumber, because I do have a lot of shame when it comes to technology. I am well below average. I'm moronic when it comes to technology, and literally my mind goes blank. You give me anything right brain, anything to do with behavioral science, social science, I am an enormously quick study. You put numbers in front of me or tech, I go blank. And I am so glad for the whole emphasis on STEM, especially STEM studies, especially for females, science, technology, engineering, and math, because those were all, you use the word weak, those were all my weak topics. And that's where the money is, unfortunately, in an increasingly technical society, with fewer and fewer people being interested in liberal arts and the broad vista of culture and the meaning of life and philosophy and critical thinking. We're teaching people to be techie. So I go on my soapbox. And of course, we want to be whole-brained. Right? We want to be well-rounded, the left brain, the linear, the mathematical, the analytical, versus the right side of our brains, the abstract, the emotive, the imaginative, the creative. We want to be well-rounded. And I would never have thought to talk about this with you, except when you used the word dumber. It came right up for me.
No, it's fascinating, because as humans, we want to be all and end all. We don't want to have weak parts of ourselves. We want to be self-sufficient. And the idea that we need other people is a source of shame.
Yeah.
It's a source of shame. And I think of Sean, for example, who is putting this entire program together. You and I could not figure out how to do this,
Exactly.
And the fact of the matter is the program would not exist without Sean, who's working at this behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. So I will say, Sean, know that, station manager of WHPC, who has won many awards for the station. Since he came on board in a very few short years, we have been recognized multiple times in the broadcasting field. So let's give a shout out to Sean. Know that. Sean, you can say something.
Hello.
Oh, you're there. Caught you and you're there.
It's a great analogy because, there's if we could just understand that we have weaknesses, we have things that we're not good at, we have things we are good at, because we are literally all supposed to live together and help each other. That's what human beings do when they live and work together. And that's a thing that will bring us that idea that we have shortcomings, that idea that we are imperfect, is an idea that if we embrace it, will bring us all together and not drive us apart.
That is so beautiful, Rick Patterson. Yeah, and I call it toxic individualism. We are a highly individualistic nation, culture, society, and to the extreme, even though we weren't raised on the frontier, we have the concept of the frontier in the American psyche. And it truly was an open vista at that time. And the sexist term was every man for himself.
Sure.
And the idea that we had this incredible amount of fertile land, actually we did not. It was already being lived on by indigenous Americans who were massacred and taken from. But the belief in white supremacy, that it was ours. The continental United States was simply ours because it was there. All we had to do is get a covered wagon or something and take the trek. And we claimed it, we owned it. And so there is so much to be said for the concept of I want something, I have the wherewithal to get it. But as you point out, look, we even have a term left over from that, circle the wagons. Yep. When somebody's in trouble, we say, okay, time to circle the wagons. So every man for himself still meant interdependence, which is the only thing that is healthy. Interdependence, not independence, not dependence, except when you're young, sick, or old, but interdependence. And yet Americans eschew that. They just eschew that. I can't reach out for help because that makes me weak.
Yeah.
I love how you talk about embracing our shortcomings, and it opens up connections with others.
Yeah, I stole that from Brene. Really, it was really powerful. I think the influence she had on me in that regard, because I think a lot of people will try and convince you that you are not imperfect, that you are perfect in everything.
Right.
You're perfect. And, don't worry about that. You're perfect. And the fact of the matter is that that's creating a false image that isn't true. But we are imperfect. And the thing is that's okay. It is okay that I'm imperfect. It's okay to say I have these issues. It's okay to say I need you here because I am imperfect in this way. And the more we try to claim perfection, or that imperfection is bad, the more we really are militating against our interdependence, our need for each other.
That is beautiful, because I have a keynote speech. You don't have to be perfect to be excellent, which I have actually trademarked, and I talk about this kind of thing. But the idea of that the imperfection is actually good because it promotes interconnectedness.
Absolutely.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant, Rick Patterson, author of Shame Unmasked, which you can purchase in a heartbeat on Amazon. Okay, Shame Unmasked, Disarming the Hidden Driver Behind Our Destructive Decisions. And I keep telling everyone your subtitle because I love it so much. It's just, as I said, it's so cryptic. I mean, every single word has such depth to it. How do you disarm the shame inside of you? And you talked last week about, animating it, talking to it, building a relationship with it, and that it is a hidden driver. What drives us? So how can our shame drive us? Tell us how our shame can drive us.
Yeah, the best way I can do that is by way of example, if that's okay.
Yeah.
One of the experiences I had, my wife and I adopted a sibling group of 4 kids. And so we became instant parents of preteens. And one of the things I realized is how much power, especially the girls, had over my reactions by their rolling the eyes. And they would roll their eyes at me and it would just send me off. I would just erupt in rage. And I began to have to wonder, to the point where I would definitely, I've been breaking my hand on a wall, because I was in this just fit of anger. And it's like, over what? Over the fact that my little girl rolled her eyes at me, And if you begin to understand it, begin to ask the why of questions of why does that elicit such a response from a grown man that he has to react this way?
Yeah.
And I began to understand that I do have this hidden sense of ignorance, of stupidity. Mm-hmm. And because I was hiding that from people, whenever a teenage girl rolls her eyes at her dad, she's saying, you're an idiot, you're a moron.
Right.
So I felt found out. I felt discovered. And whenever you feel discovered, whenever you feel found out, then shame tells me to lash out, to put up a diversion, and rage was always my diversion. And I ended up just, putting a terrible influence on my kids in terms of the way I would act out in anger. But it was all the fact that my shame of being discovered for being stupid was driving this behavior that I later regretted. The way that anger caused divisions between me and my kids, I'll regret the rest of my life. But at the time, I didn't realize that it was shame trying to protect me from being discovered for being an idiot. And that's what I mean by trying to understand what the root driver of all this is.
I can't thank you enough for using such a poignant personal example, Rick, because I think you really unrooted the whole dynamic here of shame and human relations. If the whole point of shame is that it's hidden, right? It's secret.
Yes.
It's everything we don't want people to know about us. It's all the things we are ashamed of, feel badly about, and we try to hide. And in sociology, we look at something called impression management. Irving Goffman, very famous sociologist who has passed, talked about impression management being universal, that even when you go to a third world country where people live in huts, he found that if you look out the window of the hut at a visitor approaching, that they will have just a very lax face, and just before they knock or the door opens or whatever you do in a hut, they put on their face, right? They put on their face. And this is in so-called, underdeveloped countries. And so that we're all in the business, said Irving Goffman, that of putting on the best face, the best impression that others would have of us. And it is a prevalent driver, as you talk about, hiding the shame is a prevalent driver. The shame itself is a drives our decisions, and our self-concept, which drives our decisions. So
at that time, as you know, I spent a lot of time in ministry, professional ministry, pastoral ministry, and during that time when I broke my hand, of course, it ended up in a cast, and I was suddenly in front of the church. And of course, the church is sort of paradigmatically the place where we hide who we really are from each other. We pretend to be happy. We do a lot of pretending. And so they're passed to them with a cast on his hand, and having to suddenly confess, is either you have to lie and say, we had an intruder and I fought him off, or something.
Yeah, you talked about that in your book. Astounding. And go ahead, how did you get that?
Well, so it's, or you just have to fess up and say, you know what, guess what? I screwed up. And because when you have a cast, of course, the question everybody asks is, well, what happened? What happened? And I knew the one thing I couldn't do to continue to perpetuate this is lie, especially since my daughter, I have to say I screwed up. And one of the things that I learned from even all of that and from the experience with the kids is I say that today's perfect parent is the parent who is the openly imperfect parent. Openly
I love that.
And one of the things that I think, while I had a great deal of imperfections that scarred negatively my children in our relationship, one of the things that I did well is that I was openly imperfect. I was very good at apologizing, and I was very good at saying, I screwed up. This was wrong. This is part of what makes me imperfect. And I asked for forgiveness. And I think in being an openly imperfect parent or an openly imperfect employee or an openly imperfect spouse, it gives you the opportunity to not just heal a relationship. Because once you heal a relationship, it's stronger than it was before, like a bone. Okay. And the apology and the healing that takes place after a relationship is broken from shame through the apology and things like that can really bring about a much stronger relationship than was there to begin with.
Wow. And let's just add amends, which means literally amending or changing your future behavior. Yes. Right. So it's not an empty apology. And I love your analogy about the bone, because I think that just drives home the power of healing. And so that something something terrible can actually make us stronger. As that song goes, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Yeah. And you think, how is that possible? But the bone analogy is so perfect. And you hit a wall. That's right. You punched a wall. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I wish it was just a wall. It was a wall, then a door, then an old bookcase. I punched 3 things all at once, and then next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. So, and what do you think? Just what does that do to a little girl seeing their dad, react that way? And that's when I realized I just got to get ahead of this. I have to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm sure I'm going to use this out of context and probably even wrong. But one of the things that I have in my head is I've never been there, but an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And one of the things that they say gives you power over your addiction is naming the addiction to begin with.
I mean, really?
Just name it.
Step 1.
Exactly. Just name it. And so that's one of the things I just wanted to do so badly was I wanted to name what it was, because I figured if I could name this root issue, that would be a huge step into beginning the process of overcoming it.
Name it. It's so true. Just name it. And I don't know, do you think that humility, I think with all this competitive society we live in and increasingly stressful, that I don't think humility is practiced anywhere nearly enough. I was very struck the other day. There was what is it, Borjak? Oh, what is the name? The funny guy who's like from Eastern Europe.
Borak.
Yeah, Borak in his latest movie, and the woman who plays his daughter, and I don't remember her name offhand, but she was saying in an interview and she was nominated for a supporting actress, and how she hopes to live up to the meaning of this. The first Bosnian? I think so, but Eastern European actor who is nominated, and in the name of women, and how to live up to that honor. She intends to take it very seriously. She was so disarming in this interview, the way she was so humble. It was so, I have to say, not American. We're so used to, as Americans, the pizzazz, the chutzpah, that just, coming on strong, and everything, is out there. We punch it out. We do this. And she was like, wow, I'm in this position. It's amazing. And everything about her just really was very endearing, as it was to the interviewers. So I think of her. I mean, it's such a small example based upon what you're saying, but the name it, name what the problem is, name your imperfections, opening up to other people, identifying with the fact that, oh, you mean I can be imperfect also? You mean I can have shortcomings?
Yeah, that's part of the value of being the openly imperfect parent, is that as a parent, if you can show your kids that that being imperfect is okay, just imagine what resource that gives your children to know that their imperfections are okay. If it's okay for my dad to be imperfect, it's okay for me to be imperfect. And the more we're okay with those imperfections, the more we can live in community with each other, and our joint neediness to improve and be, and be a community. And
help each other.
Rather
than being codependent, and then, being in the recovery movement myself, there was a T-shirt that was to the effect of, hey, are you going to accuse me of being codependent because I offered you a cup of coffee? So it's like, what's the difference, right, between helping someone and being codependent? And of course, the difference in my view is about enabling. We help, but we don't enable. We teach, we don't do it for. It's like the old story of the parent teaching the child to tie the shoelaces rather than, I don't have time, let me just tie them for you. So a lot of people don't even know these terms, Rick Patterson. They don't even know the term of interdependent.
Sure.
And it's not in the vernacular. It's not used a lot. But yet that is what a healthy relationship is, whether it's one-on-one or in the community, that we're all interdependent and we bring our strengths to it and we help others with their weaknesses. And let me just throw in the way we are not educated in America. And I'm only can talk about Americas because that's my expertise. But the idea of competitive learning. So the higher score I get, or rather the lower score you get, the better my score looks on the bell curve.
Sure.
So I'm going to try to be outstanding and the best, rather than cooperative learning, where you have a team of 4 and you get a group grade. So now it behooves me to help to raise you. Not to have you rely on me, but you have to do it yourself. But I want to help you get a better grade, so we all get a better grade. Yep. A lot of Americans would not like this concept. We're not imbued with it, with what I call, as I said, toxic individualism. But yet we are taught that, right? The worse you are, the better I am. So it doesn't behoove me to help you. Why would I? If I get the perks for being the better.
It's so odd because we are just, I think anybody who understands even biochemistry or neurology understands that we are created interdependent beings. We are not created individualistic beings. And so any sort of that ethos is contradictory to our physiological self. We exist.
Wow.
We exist to be interconnected, and in trying to oppose that just natural state of our being is just a prescription for disaster.
Oh boy, is it ever? And like I'm the only one, right?
Yeah.
I'm the as you said, like I'm the only screw up, because if everyone is in the business of in impression management, putting out perfection, and in my keynotes, I talk about like don't buy people's perfect roles, because all we see is our own inner screw-upper, and then we look at other people and they've got it all together. So then we want to see where they screw up, so we don't feel so badly. But just to tell the truth about where you are. Now, can you tell the truth to everyone about where you are? I mean, I think that it would be very refreshing on a job interview to say, well, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, right? A typical, because I've done so much corporate training myself, in the field of team building and conflict resolution. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And, people are coached to minimize the weaknesses. Oh, my problem is I'm a workaholic.
Yeah.
I work so long and so hard and I just can't stop myself. But to say, I'm educable. I can learn. I want to learn more about this. Who does that? Will we do it? Maybe people will do it now that they've heard us on radio. What do you think?
Baby steps, little by little, right?
Little by little, little by little.
Exactly.
So Rick Patterson, I wish I would have booked you for a 6-part series. This is amazing. You are amazing. I've enjoyed interviewing you very, very much. Rick Patterson, Shame, Unmasked, Disarming, the hidden driver behind our destructive decisions. So make friends with your shame. Any 1 or 2 sentences, last words?
Well, first, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being on, and just want to caution everybody that really this is a battle of this moment. Shame will tell you that we have to get out there now and be perfect, that we can't have any mistakes. But really the way I look at overcoming shame is just how do I win the battle of this particular moment I'm in right now, and being very present to the here and now. So I just offer that to everybody. And also the second reason I wrote the book was just to let you know, if you're struggling with this stuff, you're not alone, that you are one with the rest of us. And please know that before anything else.
Yeah, that's how you started the book. Absolutely. If that's one thing I want to leave you with, the knowledge that you are not alone. I like how you put that, because we look at this catchphrase mindfulness, in the moment, and but to win the battle of the particular moment, what is all I can do in this moment in time to be my best self, if put that way, my best self.
Yep.
Well, Rick Patterson, I officially invite you to come on again to Just Relationships. Thank you so very much. Again, what a pleasure. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.